Now back to our top story on moves in the West against the Chinese-owned video sharing app TikTok on national security concerns, which Beijing has criticised. Now let's get to Kevin Curran. He's a professor of cybersecurity from Ulster University. He joins us live now from Derry in Northern Ireland. Professor Curran, this is a widening pushback that we're seeing against the TikTok app. Canada has followed similar purges by the United States and the EU. The most cited rationale that we're hearing is that of national security. Is there a need, though, for governments to perhaps define exactly what they mean by national security concerns?
Yes, we're entering a new era, such with West versus East. And TikTok has been seen. Of course, TikTok is a Chinese app owned by ByteDance, and there are concerns within the West. And we've seen, of course, the EU and the US, and now Canada, of course, banning TikTok from federally owned devices again. So anyone working for the European Commission, for instance, in Europe, cannot have TikTok on their devices anymore. But it's two things. One is there are fears that TikTok is connected too strongly to the Communist Party in China. And again, and they worry that disinformation could be sown in the future because of the popularity of this app, because majority of the apps are owned by Meta or US or Silicon Valley. But TikTok is unique in the fact that it has garnered the attention of youth worldwide as such. So there's worries about whether or not, of course, that it can be used for social disinformation in the future, but also, of course, the harvesting of data. Again, there are concerns about what is being collected, how much data is being collected, and whether that data is being passed to the Chinese servers.
So there are potentially several threads of concern insofar as all of these bans for TikTok are concerned. I mean, you talked about the popularity of this app. Is it really a threat to America's technological superiority, though, especially when it comes to the internet?
Not so much in the internet, but when it comes to privacy and security, because apps actually can have a lot of permissions, which are quite intrusive. And again, TikTok is particularly persistent in asking users to turn on information. There are also concerns about things that it has, like the in-app browser. So this browser could potentially be collecting passwords and usernames typed in and tracking activity on the in-app browser again. So it comes down to whether or not the Western governments trust China not to harvest this intrusive, personally identifiable information.
So what I hear you say, Professor Curran, is that the manner in which TikTok algorithms work is distinctly different from the way that, you know, sort of social media apps work on other devices. Is that correct?
The TikTok algorithm is famous for actually throwing up videos which appeal to users again, so that it is kept secret. But the algorithm is not so much the concern. I mean, the algorithm can be a concern as in encouraging people to waste so many hours online, but it doesn't inform national security concerns. It's really the fact that a Chinese company can tell your username, your address, your IP address, your location, see the messages you send within the app, potentially capture keystrokes from the in-app browser. It's whether or not we trust China not to interfere. Now, they do say that the Western TikTok, that the data is not shared, but in the past, it has been shown to be streaming back to China, and that's where the concerns really come from.
Right, so let's talk a bit about that. I think you're referring partly there to Project Texas, which was meant to sort out security concerns by taking all of that data from US-based users and storing it on domestic services, a software company known as Oracle. But it does mean a lot of security on this one company. Why hasn't the promised transparency of that Project Texas allayed concerns, though?
I suppose the Ukraine war has not helped. It has stepped up concerns about an East versus West in the future. And all the signs are that we are seeing the beginnings of a war where the US is banning China from a lot of the chips and devices to high tech again. And we will probably see a mutual banning from the other side as well. So again, it comes down to do we trust China in the West again, and do we trust these companies to secure our data? Are they under the same regulations, and do they offer the same transparency as in the West? So it does come down to a trust issue again, because, of course, in the West we've issued fines, substantial fines to the Googles, the Facebooks, the Metas, the Microsofts. But again, it becomes increasingly difficult to leverage again to be able to regulate a company which is Chinese based.
And a final question for you, Professor Curran. I mean, in the United States, we know that there are plenty of statewide bans on TikTok already. What might tip the balance into seeing, perhaps a complete ban in some jurisdictions, perhaps even in other parts of the world, not just the West?
Some ways it comes down to the voters again. So the governments will, whatever way they can. But again, it's the start of one really, because generally all the apps that are popular on our phones are, of course, Western. Again, and of course, whenever it comes to apps, again, there are dangers in permissions, because really our devices are becoming the hub of our life. Again, so much stored on there. So again, what could happen? Of course, if there is a smoking gun found, for instance, if data has been exfiltrated from devices again, which is not in the policy again, of course, that would lead to an outright ban. But really, again, it's the mood of the nations again. So we'll have to see how the world tensions, what rivers up from the Ukraine war, because we might just have bans outright again. Of course, again, if China do offer military assistance to Ukraine again, we might just see an outright ban on anything to do with any apps with China again, because they will be seen then as a completely hostile force again within the West. So again, just the current landscape, of course, with the war in Ukraine, that could have a major influence on whether or not the West outright bans TikTok and other apps again.
Professor Curran, thank you very much for your insights there. Kevin Curran there speaking to us live from Derry in Northern Ireland.